on not only those guys gelling, but those guys buying in and communicating on defense in a year where, without practice because of COVID like normal, it's much more difficult to develop that. I'm not so sure. Probably they can get it, but as of right now, if it started today, they wouldn't beat any of those Western Conference teams best out of 7.
Okay, well, dating back to last season, the Lakers are 9-4 with LeBron and without Anthony Davis in the lineup, but most of those wins, guys, were against pretty mediocre, if not flat-out awful teams. All right, well, let's stay in the West and now focus on a team that could be coming for that Lakers repeat title. I'm talking about the Utah Jazz. They're 22-5 after beating the Bucks and the Heat this weekend, and the reigning back-to-back MVP Giannis giving out some big props.
Today we played the game against the best team in the West. They've been playing amazing. They won with this game 17 out of their last 18. They're playing good. They're moving the ball. They're making threes. They're finding the rollers. They're keeping it simple. They're going to the foul line. They're pretty much doing everything. They're having fun.
Keeping it simple, but doing a lot. So, Max, do you think the Lakers need to be worried about the Jazz?
Yes, I do. And Kendrick Perkins was arguing this last week. Yes, they should be worried about the Jazz. I mean, the Lakers, I think the Lakers will beat the Jazz when it comes down to it, but not if AD is compromised. We're talking about if he's not on the court. If he's not on the court, the Lakers are cooked. But if AD is there, but Stephen A., let's say he's some lower percentage of himself significantly because he's dealing with an injury, yeah, the Jazz would probably beat him right now. And here's the thing. Last year we saw the Jazz and that Denver team. I can't remember a better first-round series. I don't know. You can go back to those Knicks-Miami series back in the day, Stephen A., with Alonzo and Tim Hardaway against Patrick Ewing and them. But those were defensive struggles. Denver and Utah, Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray put on a show for the ages. That should have been in a conference finals, not in the first round. And Denver won by the skin of their teeth. And that was without Bogdanovich, right? So you add him, and now you think, oh, maybe that swings it Utah's way. That's not a stretch to say you add a really important piece and it can swing Utah's way. But here's the real difference. Mike Conley was not Mike Conley last year. Not in the regular season or the playoffs. When they moved to get him, I thought, ooh, that's great. Mike Conley is sort of a poor man's Chris Paul. And not a poverty-stricken man's Chris Paul either. Just not quite Chris Paul, but does a lot of the same things for your team. I always thought he was underrated, and if he's not great, he's the next thing to it. But he wasn't Mike Conley for that team last year. Stephen A., Mike Conley is playing elite basketball this year. All-star and then some, no doubt. And if you put him, because when we think about these things, yeah, it's nice to have Bogdanovich as a piece. Joe Ingles, Gobert as a defensive stopper, But what we're really thinking is, yeah, we know you got one guy who could go get it for you when you need it. Usually it takes two. Mike Conley can be Donovan Mitchell's crime partner that way, not just in terms of organizing the defense and hitting shots, but getting his own shot when it matters. Yes, they need to be worried about Utah.
I say no. And the reason that I say no is only because, I throw health aside because that's a given. If you're compromised to the point where you can't play or you're just a shell of yourself because you're playing, but you're clearly hobbled, a lot of teams have a chance. We understand that. When I answer a question like this, I'm saying Utah 100% healthy, the Lakers 100% healthy. Do I have a reason for concern? The answer is no. And here's why I feel that way. Because I don't trust anybody on Utah outside of Donovan Mitchell. I like the way Mike Conley is playing, and I appreciate that. I've always had tremendous respect for Mike Conley. He's averaging about 16 this year, shooting 45% from the field, about 41% from three-point range, which is impressive. No question about that. That's not what he normally does. I'm assuming that will dip a little bit as the season progresses. I'm just going to make that assumption. Okay, we look at them defensively. Rudy Gobert is averaging 14 points, 13 rebounds, nearly 3 blocks a game. You can rely on him to do that against almost anyone, Max, except who?
Yeah.
That would be Anthony Davis and LeBron James, okay? So we got that going on, right? Royce O'Neal. This dude is proving to be a pretty elite defender in the NBA. I think he's the unsung hero for the Utah Jazz. He's like their version of Drew Holiday, not offensively, but defensively in terms of what he brings to the table, okay? Well, here's the problem with that. If you're going up against the Lakers, who's your point? Who's your point? Who's the dude that's running the show? Who's the dude that exploits mismatches at every turn? And Royce O'Neal is about 5 inches shorter and about 30 pounds lighter. I mean, this is what I'm talking about here. So when you break it down from a basketball perspective, I think the Lakers are nightmarish for Utah. Now, Donovan Mitchell is a stud, and as far as I'm concerned, a superstar. And I look at it a little bit differently than you. You talk about how his matchup against Jamal Murray should have been a conference finals. Yeah, that's kind of true. But here's another way to look at it. Because of last season and COVID and all that came with it and being in a bubble, what a way to start off the playoffs with those two going at it with each other. It was spectacular.
That was unbelievable.
So we got this. Utah is a top 2 defensive team. They're elite defensively on the interior, as well as getting out to defend three-pointers, because you know the interior is protected by Rudy Gobert. Offensively, they're far more efficient than we expected, and they deserve credit. But do I believe it's something that they can sustain the last 2 quarters of the season? I'm not sold. I will say this, though. If they're a top 2 or 3 seed, they don't have to worry about going up against a 4th seed or a 3rd seed until the 2nd round. So because of that, I can see them getting out of the 1st round this year, being in the conference semifinals. But I got to see I have no questions about Donovan Mitchell. 0. Everybody else, I got to see it to believe it.
If push came to shove and you called for both of our predictions.
And they're exceptionally well coached, by the way. They're exceptionally well coached.
Right, that's what I'm getting to. If push came to shove and you asked for our predictions, I'm also going to take the Lakers if they're both fully healthy. And that's because of what you identified. They have LeBron James. So in those close games, you just trust that a guy who's so much better than anyone on the other team will get it done. But when you bring up, yeah, in the end, I'll take, but should they be worried about the Jazz? Do the Jazz pose a legitimate threat? They do, because of what you just mentioned. Exceptionally well-coached teams that move the ball well, that play unselfishly, and that also have superstars when they need it most. Donovan Mitchell is a star regularly. When you need him most, he's a superstar. And the gravity he creates, and even a guy like Bogdanovich creates, makes it easier for Conley, Stephen A. So when you say you don't know if Conley is sustainable at these rates because the advanced analytics say he's elite, like a top 5 player or something like that, right? He's something crazy this year. Maybe that'll regress a little bit to the mean, but the point is he can have the best season of his career this year because of the situation he's in. And sometimes a team that's exceptionally well coached, that has a superstar and other important parts, can pop their head up and knock off the champion, knock off the favored team. We've seen it with the Dallas Mavericks. We've seen it with the Detroit Pistons. And it could be that the Jazz are a version of that this season.
We'll see.
All right, guys. Well, the Jazz, as you know, best record in the league right now, winning 18 of their last 19. We'll see if they can carry on the momentum tonight when they took on the Eastern Conference leading 76ers. All right, well, we all know that LA is synonymous with
Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. Are problems still brewing? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? We'll talk about that. Plus, there's a flop artist in the NBA. And according to some folks, the number 1 nemesis is LeBron James. Also, an injury to Anthony Davis. Could this ruin the Lakers' title hopes? All that and more coming up. First Takes in the house. I told y'all the weekend's over, so you know what time it is. Let's go.
Here is Anthony Davis on the right wing. Davis fouled by Jokic.
Reaching down.
AD's holding his right Achilles. It's if he's re-injured it, and he pulled up on it hard. I think he could be done for the night.
There's always next man up. No matter who's out. We're not asking anybody to pick up what AD does. You can't do that. It's impossible. He's a special player and a special talent for a reason. So, everyone individually has to, pick up their play for the collective of the team, in AD's absence. So we look forward to that challenge.
Yep, the weekend is over and we have a lot to talk about. Everyone, welcome on into First Take on this Monday. I'm Charlie Arnold. We got Max Kellerman, Stephen A. Smith in the house. Both of you looking very dapper this morning. Although, Stephen A., I must say, a little disappointed to not see you with your man bag. I know that's your style staple these days, but we'll move on from that because, guys, we have injuries on 2 championship contenders that happened over the weekend. First, KD, he's in Brooklyn. He has a strained hamstring, but you just heard from LeBron, so let's go to LA and focus on the injury with AD. Now, last night, Anthony Davis was pulled from action after the first half after the Nuggets and aggravating the tendinosis in his right Achilles. He will now undergo an MRI today. That, according to